OOCS into a wider galaxy, Part 206. The buzz on the spin. Captain, please repeat that. Subject Mirror has volunteered to speak to the ship captain of the Inevitable to facilitate us docking our ship within theirs. He is openly and blatantly subverting you. Yes, he also admits to it, claiming it to be a form of style he and his original, who he refers to as his brother, was taught. Essentially, he has a high degree in training that the main focus is on subverting every element he can detect. Saying it's more useful to have a friend than random tricks or bits of equipment? This could not be more obvious if he were to show up in your bunk wearing only skin moisturizer and flowers. Commander, I do not know if he is currently listening, but in case he is, please do not give him ideas. Velocity pleads. Fair enough. We have been continuing our own research, not only into human cultures and attitudes, but into improving our own capabilities. Subject Mirror is a dangerous anomaly, but not unique. As you and your team continue to observe him and those around him, you will be discovered again and again. Are you psychologically prepared to deal with that much exposure, Captain? It doesn't matter if I'm ready or not, ma'am. It's happening, so I will handle it, she answers. Good woman. Try to reverse his subversion. If we can get that level of sheer observational power on our side, we should be able to suss our way through innumerable problems in short order. And how am I to do that, Commander? I'm not exactly trained in subversion or seduction. No, this is the first time we've encountered this. A worrying gap in our tactics and strategies. Even putting aside unusual men such as Subject Mirror and those similar to him, there is a treasure trove of wealth, both physical and informational. And we have to find some methodologies. Meaning you want me to start seducing the man, she says. Yes, I've looked up who he's been trained by. He's not going to fit in as a proper seduction target. He's going to turn it back on me. He's going to accept, and he's going to... Velocity starts looking to the side as her mind starts going to exactly what is going to happen if this order comes through. I think this is a sword you're willing to fall on, her commander says, and Velocity sighs. Accept his offer, go with them. Yes, ma'am. And after we got that utter madness settled, the self-decapitating cannibal plant women buggered off. But not without Grandma Man-Eater explaining in detail how she wanted my manhood in her razor-sharp mouth, and clearly wanted to try another new way to have a child or grandchild. Did you actually stick it in, or... No, I did not, Blinky replies. She asked for a sample. I refused. She clarified that she would not be taking the sample and merely using it. I then proceeded to having a daytime nightmare and was stuck on the idea if the resulting child would be counted as eating one's vegetables or meats by the Floric. I refused again, and she thankfully did not press it. It's possible to interbreed with plants? Yes, although the standard Floric reproduction involves self-decapitation. How? Their heads resemble Halloween pumpkins with shark teeth. The head is capable of surviving without a body if it's in sunlight and on soil. If the body's not destroyed, it may grow a new head with a new personality. This is how they commonly reproduce. They prepare an area where the body will be safe with a baby intelligence controlling it, and then rip off their own heads. I thought it was a joke entry. It was not, Blinky says. Sergeant Palacios, this is... Observer Wu tries to find the words. Disturbing that I keep attracting women that are liable to eat me? Blinky asks. Yes. Have they informed you as to why? Is there some trait you possess that they're picking up on? None. Apparently I'm just really tasty looking. Blinky replies and Observer Wu looks confused, and Blinky shrugs. It shows up every now and again. For some reason, no amount of training, weapons, or armor I have on me, or on other people like me, will help with it. It just makes me look more tasty. Strangest of all is that they get parental too. No matter what I do, it's cute and tasty. It's weird. He continues and Observer Wu looks baffled. Has there been anything else truly odd, Sergeant Palacios? No, the tasty look is fairly unique to myself so far. Beyond that, it's been odd. Life on this station is odd. Even pushing aside the fact that there are basically no real laws, and the ones that are there boil down to Don't provoke the station staff and don't endanger the station. We're still between several distinct cultures, and they have numerous different neighbors beyond. The expectations of behavior from those that don't know I'm station staff. It shows all sorts of things about those cultures. Universally, a man alone and lost is quickly gathered around and protected. But many times people have tried to cover me up or get the number of my first wife, or any number of things. From it, I've learned that the Tarlat Republic traditionally considers men to be the accountants and emotional centers of their families. They speak in terms of sums and wealth to me. While interesting, why did you bring that up? Because as we end our session, sir, if there's one thing I want you to understand about the galaxy at large, is that even in places and within cultures that humans would find stifling, there's a great deal more to it than we usually assume at first. The Tarlat have many arrangement systems within them and are generally considered a very safe place for men and families. This sounds like double meaning, where a man would find himself in a gilded cage. But it's not that simple. And to be quite honest, I can think of a lot of people I knew growing up that would have jumped for joy at a guaranteed job crunching numbers. Doesn't really sound so bad now, does it? No, but not something you want. It is not. And that's the important thing to consider, sir. Not only do you have biases as a human and a man and as an outsider to most of the galaxy, but you have personal biases as well. And no matter how well trained you are, they're leaking through. It's not a question of if, but a question of how much. I'm aware of this, Sergeant Palacios. I have taken measures to counter it. I go over my own notes numerous times and peel out everything but the base facts. All right, just be careful, sir. Many people thought it was a base fact that I would do several different mutually exclusive things. No one considered that a third option would be taken. I am aware. I would like to read out my excess orders, just to drive things home, sir. Very well. From Redacted of the Spanish government, Vincent Palacios. As a citizen of Spain, it is your duty to bring any and all information regarding weapon and communication systems of alien make to us first and foremost. Disclosed here are several numbers and websites you may use to receive priority communication lines. This is a paramount duty to your people, home, and nation. He reads out one before bringing up another. Citizen Palacios of Spain. The vessel you are on contains American property and methodologies. Therefore, you answer to the United States government while serving on our ship. You are to bring to us any weapon systems you find first. Failure to comply will be met with disciplinary actions under international law. He brings up another. Oh, this is a one that truly let me know that there was no way out of the mess. Western Pig. The ship has been paid for by Chinese labor, and every breath you take is at the pleasure of the party. Therefore, you will bring the party any and all technological designs you extract from the aliens first. We can and will enforce this regardless of where you run to. Do not oppose the will of the people. Observer Wu is distinctly uncomfortable. Palacios brings up another. This one I needed to find someone to help me translate. It's from Nigeria, and despite Spanish being a well-known language to them, they decided it would best be printed in Yoruba. This is insane because I can read English and it's the official language of the government there. I get the picture. Do you? Because after my orders from Nigeria, I also have orders from the European Union, France, Britain, India, and Japan. I was a nobody with 9 different and mutually exclusive orders, all of them either outright or implying a threat against me if I don't comply. Some of them technically on the same side or part of the same alliance, but all of them, including the alliance, demanding special treatment. Where are you going with this? This complete mess is well known and understood. All but a rare few of those who did this nonsense have lost their jobs if not been jailed. Some countries have even executed them. Observer Wu says, and Palacios nods. I'm bringing this up because earlier I heard you ask Demon if he would go back to Earth even if all this nonsense was cleared away. Here's my answer to it. Number not only no, but hell no. Even if you could 100% guarantee me that I would get no blowback, massive payment, and enormous honors granted to me for my services so far, I would not go, but not because I have a family I'm building here or responsibilities I'm particularly attached to. I don't. When my contract expires here, I'm out, And most women that look at me think with their stomach and not their hearts. I haven't adopted anyone, or even seen anyone, seriously. I have nothing tying me to the outer galaxy. Then why not return to Earth? Observer Wu asks patiently, and something in Vincent snaps. Because the number of threats and the sheer presumptive arrogance sticks in my craw so badly that trying to choke it down is like swallowing barbed wire. The more I think about it, the angrier I get. The higher-ups of the world call for volunteers to a suicide mission, torture us for 2 years to make us stronger in some of the most sadistic ways possible since Mengele was in charge of the camps. And then rather than offering honors or praise for doing the impossible before we even get off the ground, we get threat after threat after threat from every direction. No nation failed to send someone a threat. No nation failed to break our trust. For those like me, the nations that didn't threaten us became as much of an insult as the ones that did. I trained until I sweated blood. I learned until I could barely recognize myself in the mirror. And I wasn't good enough to be considered for a threat. And now, after we do the only sensible thing and throw out those baboso orders, we still send back the information, the supplies and samples. And then they send you, because even doing what we were set out to do, when they made it impossible, wasn't enough. The impossible wasn't enough. The man rants before taking a deep breath. Dios podría abrir el jardín de Edén, y todos ustedes se quejarían de la falta de vino. He says under his breath, more an aside as he tries to rein in his temper. If you're going to speak in Spanish, please do so a little more slowly. God could open the Garden of Eden and you would all complain about a lack of wine, Palacio says as he takes deep breaths. He goes silent and looks away, a stormy look to his face before he takes a deep breath and considers. The day-to-day madness distracts me, distracts most of us, I think. But I have never been more betrayed, more insulted, or more infuriated by anything else. And it goes to entire nations. You say the people responsible are out? I say bullshit. You yanked out some faceless drones from their places and put new ones in. Nothing has changed. Everyone that will go back to Earth has gone back to Earth, and if you have any sense, you won't go back either. I have my duties and will not abandon them. Well then, best of luck to you, Observer Wu. You're going to need it, Sergeant Vincent Palacios, a.k.a. Blinky, states before standing up. Now, if you'll excuse me, sir, I need to get back to my duties and making sure that incoming and outgoing ships don't ram each other because everyone here thinks they're the biggest thing since the stars ignited. OOCS, Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 207, Elsewhere with Others. And we're away, Captain Rangi says as the Indomitable pulls away from Octaron's spin. Before we leave the system, are you certain you got everything, Observer Wu? We were not here long. I am sure. And are you absolutely sure that letting that craft into my cargo bay is a good idea? I am, Harold says on the opposite side of the captain to Observer Wu. I wasn't asking you, Captain Rangi states as he looks to Observer Wu. They cannot be normally detected by our equipment and normal methods. So we need abnormal ones, such as controlling where they are by inviting them into a position far too tempting to pass up. I don't like having them so close, but we know where they are now. Not to mention they're just invisible, not inaudible, and not intangible. If you really want to find out where they are, they stick out on radar and a light fog or mist in an area highlights them, Harold contributes. I've had the internal factories pumping out mist machines. Plug them in and put some water in the hopper, and they can easily be found in any room. So that's why you've requested some production cycles from our factories? Fog machines? Yes, a lot of the bigger issues have easy answers. Too many hackers, unplug sensitive files from network access, remove the hard drive, or write things down on paper. If there's no electronic path for them to connect to the data. Invisible infiltration, bells on the doors, mists in the hall, and walk at a clip where it's hard, if not impossible, to keep pace without your heels clanging on the deck plating. There are some rooms on the Dauntless that have a second flooring layer that squeaks under the slightest change of pressure. Low-tech solutions to advanced problems? While it may be more satisfying to use a gravity hammer or a railgun, sometimes when you need something smashed, a rock works just as well, he says. Like, say, inviting a spy in so you know exactly where their base of operations are? Captain Rangi asks, and Harold nods. Fine. There's also the fact that their ship is so small it could be destroyed, and there's no knowing how their government, in whatever form it's actually in, would take that. Likely quite poorly. They're a very prickly and defensive people, and if they throw blame at the Undaunted or this ship and its mission, we suddenly have further complications to deal with. You think our vessel would lose in a fight? It's tough for what it is, but for its weight class, a Dauntless-class ship just isn't going to stand against a full-on battleship or the flights of fighters held on dedicated carriers. This is an up-armed and armored troop transport with a good number of logistical systems, which is nice, but it only compares well to the usually minimally armed and armored troop transports of the galaxy, and few, if any of them, are as big as a Dauntless class. So if we are so vulnerable, why have we not been attacked? Captain Rangi asks. Simple. Not a lot of opportunists have the power to grab something this big, and for those that do have it, they're well-informed enough to not try it. The big prize on these ships isn't the metal, but the men. And the Undaunted already have a reputation as some very fine fighters. We're a lot more trouble than most groups are willing to try and take. The complete destruction of the Chaining's crew and the ship's rechristening into the Chainbreaker, coupled with the fact that wherever humans are showing up, things are happening, means that any prudent pirate looking for a payday just sees a massive sunk cost on ships like this. But be careful, some of the really big ones are powerful enough to try anyways. A pirate captain will think long and hard, a pirate commodore will just see a prize for the taking. And how likely are we to encounter such? Captain Rangi asks. Well, not a big chance on this side of the big lanes, but as we get close to our destination, we have a chance of running into such. As such, I advise respectfully, sir, that we call ahead and request IFF codes from our destination, so that anyone that's likely to take a sniff gets a whiff of Lilpaw instead of us. You know exactly where we're going, Observer Wu notes. Yes, sir. Even though I have not properly decided yet, written it down or even spoken about it out loud. It's not that hard. There are only a few remaining destinations, and you seem like the type who likes to get certain kinds of work finished in bulk. And since we're on a pirate station... Fair enough and well surmised. Yes, our heading is to Vuxa 5, on the other side of the major galactic laneways and at the very edge of wild space, but without the benefit of multiple primals and their fleets there. It shouldn't be too bad. The people of Vuxa have been building enormous defenses and turning their system into a fortress. Couple that with how they have been outright provoked time and again, and the whole lot of them are likely half rabid at any chance to lash out on an enemy. Call ahead and get that IFF, or someone might get trigger happy. Is it that bad? Captain Rangi asks. What happened? Most recently, they learned that their world was used to create super weapons, and an old horror that haunted them for generations was part of it. As they were still recovering from this revelation, an ancient weapon of a criminal family woke up and began besieging their cities and towns. Then when they pushed it back, it resorted to a mental attack that hit the whole world. Only those with human blood didn't go berserk and lash out at those around them, and the humans fared little better, falling into a waking night terror custom designed from the depths of their own minds to break them. As you can imagine, they're a little cautious at this point. I'm not sure cautious is the correct term, Captain Rangi says as he leans back in his seat and considers. But it's not paranoia if it's in response to being actually attacked. Perhaps wary then? Observer Wu asks. Wary works, Harold says. This thing that used a mental attack, is it destroyed? It was a mass-produced weapon of mass destruction called Mother Massacre, the digitized mind of a psychotic serial killer with the blueprints and programming to create armies that break worlds if given time to ramp up. They gave her next to no room to maneuver, and she still got a river of blood out of Vuxa. And to make matters worse, until she activates the places where those things are stored, resembles simple munition caches, a common thing all over the galaxy. There could be one or even several on Octeron's spin right now, and until someone turns it on, There's no way of knowing without scouring every inch of it. It's worse on worlds. How does it work? Drone armies and indirect warfare. Its main form has shuttle-worthy shields while being not much bigger than a person, meaning she can take an unusual amount of punishment. Basically, she stays the hell off the battlefield except to blitz in to kill enemy commanders and champions. And she's always building more, stealing more, and poisoning the atmosphere. If she isn't about to hit you with a mind whammy, give her any room and she will break you. You seem undecided if Mother Massacre is a her or an it. I am. It was a person, but it's a weapon now. So, half and half, maybe. Are you concerned with being the same? I hadn't even considered that. My thought went to, if a bone knife is made out of someone's body, is it a he or it? Normally an it, but if you know of the person, is it a he? The Mother Massacre is a mass-produced monster. Pardon, it was Herbert who saw it, but I know what the code looks like. A lot of it has been streamlined, and there are chunks in normal synth code that are just missing. I'm not sure where the line between code and person lies, but a Mother Massacre has been more or less forced to the side of a simple program. Or not so simple in this case. Captain, we're at safe distance from the station now. One of the pilots states, accelerate to cruising speed, make for the system edge nearest to the laneway branch. Captain Rangi orders. Copy that. Accelerating, the pilot replies. All right, you two, I appreciate that you're speaking of dangers ahead, but I would like your chatter off my bridge while I'm trying to fly casual in a pirate system. So button up or leave the bridge. Captain Rangi states, looking from Harold to Observer Wu. Of course, I'll see to our guests unless anyone has anything else for me, Harold says as he starts to leave at a brisk pace, but one that gave everyone present time enough to call after him. When he's gone, Captain Rangi turns to Observer Wu. I will get to sorting my recordings then. Thank you kindly, sir, Captain Rangi says, as if he did not just effectively throw the man off this part of the ship. Velocity is a little stunned as she watches the absurd events playing out before her. It's a training session, but it looks like a game. A very unusual game, with a huge number of sonair in it for some reason. And So is your partner here going to uncloak? Harold asks as he's suddenly there. She does not jump, but she does jerk as she suppresses the reflex. How did you do that? Velocity's soldier demands. This wasn't intentional. You were very distracted, Harold says. I haven't been introduced to you yet, Miss Light Blue. How many colors do your kind come in anyways? And is it always a soft, almost pastel color? Oh my goodness, it wasn't exaggerated, she says, looking at Harold, who meets her gaze with ease. Not only am I not on the visible spectrum, but my presence is telling you nothing is here. How can you see me? Because you can see me, he answers, and she pauses, considers it, and then Velocity watches the mental process of the younger and less well-experienced Vishanyan outright crash. That's not the whole of it, is it? It's a part of it. There are actions and reactions any number of ways, and I just pay attention to it now. But I will admit, it can be kind of tiring without endless axiom to keep me standing, Harold says. But we're a bit off topic. Does Miss Blue here have a nickname I can use, or do I get to inflict one on her? Inflict her? Do you want to be known as a Babadi Babadoom? What? Song reference. Call her Rain and move on. Fine. But Captain, to non-Vishanyan, we are Velocity and Rain. These are fine names to go by, and they allow no secrets out. Now fade into view, you're clearly visible to this man, and as he's a major security officer on this ship, we're clearly not subtle here. Yes, sir, Rain says as she fades into view. Her features are a touch more upward angled than Velocity's, and as Harold said, she's a soft, almost possessal blue to counteract Velocity's soft pink. Now, you both were questioning the training exercise going on in there, right? Harold asks, pointing to the view screen into the hollow chamber. It's very strange, Velocity notes, and Harold nods. This, dear girls, is a preview of something we're going to be running into eventually. I'll skip the more boring steps and just give you the interesting facts. The species known as Sonir were elevated to a galactic civilization shortly after becoming fully sentient. So they're grasping for culture, and a colony of the species has latched onto the idea of a fictional character from human media. They've emulated the setting and details, and the Undaunted are helping with it while also using it as a recruiting and training method. It's all a big silly situation that was born out of just how odd the galaxy can be. Make sense? When you explain it like that, it does. But why are there... What are those? Gas-filled flying vehicles? That's very inefficient and dangerous in volcanic area, as the background clearly shows them as being in. Why are they doing that? The blimps? Style, I'm afraid, but from my understanding, they're not actually blimps and are much, much more stable than they look, Harold explains. And why is this simulation being run through so much? Partially because it is a good one that teaches a great deal, and also because many men on the ship find it amusing. So it's training and entertainment in one. Heck, even I have a lot of fun in there. Really? Really? Rain looks over his head to Velocity, who raises an eye ridge in response, then nods. Can I try? Certainly. Let's wait for this group to finish and all three of us go in. I'll clear up any confusion, but let you two handle everything. Sound good? Yes, thank you. OOCS Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 208. Elsewhere with Others. Row. I spy with my kitty eye, a little mouse with wings. A purring voice greets them soon after they enter the hollow chamber. Uma descends from above in skin-tight leather, using a whip she has highlighting her muscular hips and powerful legs. She stops when she's nose-to-nose with Harold as he looks directly up at her. Meow. Meow indeed. What are you hanging off of? Well, in a few moments. You. Uma says, reaching down and grabbing him by the shoulders before doing a sit-up and kissing him in a massive display of strength and minimal axiom use. He grabs her right back and, while maintaining the kiss, swings his legs so he's hanging upside down with her and uses his longer legs to clamp around the whip she's hanging from. Oh, Kitty wants to play. Do you two have to do that? Rain asks uncomfortably as both of them make out right in front of them. Uncomfortable with seeing mammals fraternize? Velocity asks her. No, but I was expecting our jaunt in this hollow chamber to actually start and not be sidetracked by a random takra dropping in out of nowhere. Haven't hit the ground yet, so I'm technically dropping and haven't dropped. Uma protests after a touch more kissing. Besides, I'm here to help you. She then lets go of the whip, but Harold stays hanging and she grabs onto his shoulders and swings a little. Told you I'd be hanging off you. You did. What's this thing tied to anyways? Harold asks after giving her a slight nuzzle. Gargoyle, Uma answers before letting go entirely and landing lightly. Harold gives a jerk and climbs up and out of sight. Morale? He then descends moments later in gray body armor, a brown jacket, and a red helmet. He tosses the whip to Uma. The game is that I'm with the bat, not the dead boy. I'm not going around without a gun, Harold answers. Oh, well, maybe I'll see what kind of costume will match Red Hood then. Oh no, we're already just fine, he says. Now then, ladies, you want to understand how this whole system works? It's a combination of combat, investigation, and puzzle solving. We encourage people to undergo these themed bits of entertainment in order to make money, ingratiate ourselves with the locals, and see if there's someone with some potential that looks like a good recruit. So this should be easy for us. At civilian levels, this should be a complete walkthrough for the both of you. Trivial to the point of almost insulting. Still, we're going to go through all 4 available levels. Available? Does that mean the real thing has another level? It does. Level 5 removes the safeties and is in essence real combat. Level 4 is a non-lethal high-end training exercise. Level 3 is as much as we expect any civilian to get to. Level 2 is what a fit and intelligent person can be expected of, and Level 1 is the very basics that you can put a child into. And if I want Level 5, Rain asks, and there is instantly a large pistol pressing against the side of her neck courtesy of Harold. Level 5 is me pulling the trigger and taking your head off right now, he says before pulling it back. If this wasn't loaded with rubber rounds at any rate, as it is, I can only do Level 4 with this pistol, unless I pistol whip a chunk of their skull off. So Level 5 is just asking for lethal combat. Lethal-themed combat, but yes. Is it? It's theoretical only, and to my knowledge has never been anything but theoretical, although I've heard of a couple of adepts that went to level 4 and had a blast with it. What happened? Apparently they let Firefly get the drop on them because they wanted to literally play with fire. End result, they had to take it to the nearby trench due to the temperatures they were reaching, and a Scathach lava serpent caught interest. Things got out of hand. A Scathach lava serpent? Velocity asks. Harold points into the distance where an orange glow emerges. He snaps his fingers, and there is an enormous sinewy form made of molten iron slowly winding. It's way up a wall. That creature is a Scathach lava serpent. It's an extremely deadly and powerful animal that Grand Huntsmistress Yzma considers a good training target. If I'm gauging distances right, that creature is big enough to wrap around this massive ship and hot enough to damage it as it does so, Velocity says. Yes. And why do they live so close to it? Because hunting them for sport is the main revenue source of the world. The whole theme affair we have going on here is designed to drudge up further income in off-seasons and attract clientele to this city in particular instead of other ones. Harold explains and Velocity nods. Hunting, is that big a thing? Rain asks. Oh yeah, you missed a big opportunity to ask Yzma about it. She's a living legend, and in fact was the spearhead to uplift the Sonner into a galactic civilization. Why would she do that? Rain asks. She hunted them. She saw them evolve from dangerous and powerful bat beasts into bat-based people. She then sponsored them and made sure they had room, protection, and everything they needed to grow. In the end, she gave too much, and they're struggling to find an identity to this day. Too much? But she was younger then, struggling to find the balance between mothering and smothering, Harold says with a smile. But that's not important right now. All you need to know is that if you want the Vishanyan to speak to a woman who shaped the galaxy and is very willing to talk about it, then Yzma, who I hung out with on that station, is a very, very good start. Oh, interesting. What other sort of creatures does she consider the basics? Well, the Jalak birds no longer count. They're crossing into full personhood status. Herbert received his patriarch title due to teaching them how to communicate with Axiom. But there were also drop bears, dangerous ambush predators capable of carving through hypercrete and seaquakes, large crustaceans capable of hitting hard enough to simulate tectonic activity. Harold says, then pauses. Were they called drop bears? Or is that a, nice to have a spot where I'm unsure. Anyways, if you two are now ready, shall we start with a mystery? The crowd watching outside is no doubt getting annoyed. Do something already! Someone shouts from outside the holochamber, and everyone looks to where they know the cameras are. Harold opens his arms with a grin. Fine, start us on level 3, and if we do well, I want to see level 4, Velocity says. And I have arrived. What is so amusing? Observer Wu asks as he arrives in the viewing area of the holochamber, and some of the men point to the wall. In it, the two serpentine women are going over the details of what appears to be a brutal murder. Victor Zaz, some kind of severe mental break that compels him to kill and then carve a tally mark on himself. Easiest course of action to determine if this was his doing or not is to track him and see if he has a fresh one. I don't know, from this image, he doesn't have the same sort of appeal that the men on the ship do. Well, considering he's a degenerate lunatic who's literally carved himself up, I'd have questions for you if he did maintain his appeal. Velocity notes. Guess they can't all be bait, Rain mutters. They can see us, hear us too. Velocity counters and Rain looks around before shrugging. Well, it's not exactly a mystery, is it? There aren't enough men in the galaxy for all the women, and it's no different for us. I'm allowed to look, and it's not surprised that we're like this too. Is there something you'd like to tell me? Velocity asks. No, I just need to find the balance between open and secretive, Rain says before looking to where the cameras are. Need hints? Red Hood asks, leaning in from outside the alleyway. We're fine, Velocity assures him, and a tight leather-clad hand tipped with claws reaches over and he's pulled out of sight. All right, I'm getting a readout of known sightings, but Zaz's current location is unknown, Rain says. I'm seeing a pattern. So am I. Let's go, Velocity says. and they both leave the alleyway to get ahead of the Zast sightings. They pass by Red Hood, being hauled up by Giria in green body paint, with a few leaves stuck to her to simulate poison ivy as she decides to have her own fun with Catwoman on assist. As they navigate through Gotham, they pass by numerous police chases and shady scenes, many of them containing Red Hood in various compromising positions, including with a gigantic, furry Harley Quinn with a shark-like mouth and head. There are numerous snickers in the viewing room. Think he's going to do that when he's actually at Scathach? Someone asks. Oh, probably. Observer Wu notes as he views the two aliens wander through Gotham. Do you think they're walking with the exaggerated sway because they know we're watching, or because they've forgotten? Well, sir, they've been prickly and defensive to a massive degree. It could be ingrained instinct, leftover from whatever's happened to them. And how does that stack up to Mr. Jameson's theory that they're an artificial species? Observer Wu says. Unnatural to what extent? We could argue that any human breed is unnatural because we started to tame our environment, purify our food with fire and heat, and live in constructed homes. Or that we're entirely natural as all forms of animals clean their food, construct nests, and congregate. Unless we get a sample out of them that allows us to fully pin down exactly what they were before they were altered, we have no way of knowing. Well, either way, get a load of these freaks. A random encounter of thugs from Gotham exclaim as 20 people surround Velocity and Rain. What the? Freaks? Random encounter banter. There are 4 programmed insults for groups they use. Harold calls over. So do we just fight? Rain demands as she dodges a crage from a man with an improvised shield. That you do. Some of them are tougher than average and need a dedicated beatdown. Others have the shield, some have knives, some stun rods, and some are considerably more skilled. But always, always look out for those with ranged weapons. You have none with you now, but at this level you will run into one later. Only a small number have gear, Velocity notes. This is a fairly easy encounter with the challenge being the number of them. Take them down. Any blow that will cripple or knock out will do. Harold calls over and both women vanish, before suddenly a pair of thugs double over as they're slammed in the stomach. Then one screams as his leg snaps at the side. The invisible assault continues as the men are contorted, broken, driven into each other's weapons and then hurled into the nearby wall with bone-crunching force. Very nice, Harold compliments. Heads up, though, the simulation adapts. Not too badly, but by using that level of stealth, there will be countermeasures up ahead. It's just trying to keep the challenge level up. I think we can handle it. Of course you can. You're soldiers. Just be aware that it won't suddenly turn into a day sleeping in. Think of this as some good exercise for the body and brain, Harold says. While you have fun with your wives, Velocity notes. Jealous? Jawver asks, leaning out with a golden curly wig on and makeup to make her look like an improbably well-proportioned human girl. What are you doing? And what kind of fetish are you trying to give that man? One for me, Jawver says. Oh, and I'm baby doll now. Cheers, you 2 tall paranoids. I'm here for fun. She then dives back in and there's the sound of sucking. She's clearly doing something with her man. Right, well, unless you plan on joining them, Rain, let's get back to the exercise. After all, we need to truly see how human training stacks up. More human entertainment? Harold pipes up. I've seen your idea of entertainment. Most of them do double duty as training simulations. We've been labeled as an apex race for a very good reason, Harold concedes. OOCS Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 209. Elsewhere with others. The snipers with infrared vision sensors are pulled from their perches and sent crashing to the streets below, dead on impact, if they were people and not illusions. You're lucky I didn't put in the setting to penalize killing strokes, Harold calls to the invisible woman who start outright dismantling a defensive formation. The only hint of their coming are sudden screams followed by vicious crunches. And sometimes not even that, as heads suddenly snap backwards far beyond what the neck can rotate, or knives suddenly blossom in the chests of criminals. After 20 of the 30 men are dead in mere seconds, the remaining thugs break and run for their lives in screaming terror. 2 of them slam into the ground and vanish as they're dragged away. The light ash fall that's being simulated shows their general trail as it goes to the walls and then up to the rooftops. There is the sound of a brief interrogation. Then the men reappear, heading for the concrete face first from 15 stories up. We need to put bells on them or something. One of the men watching the display notes, and Observer Wu nods absently. Let's be fair. We've seen Harold do worse. The man's a machine, and he's on our side. These 2 are, guess, spies? They're not on our team, not fully. And seeing this makes me nervous. Hey, I just got back from the John. What did I miss? What are the guest girls doing? A man asks, entering the viewing area. Level 3 game. They've rolled Zas, the nut with the knife and scars. He's hiding in the middle of a gang territory and has a victim he's taking his time with. So the girls need to clear out the gang and find the bastard. They just got into a guarded area and killed 20 people. Let 8 run and interrogated, then executed the last 2. Jesus, did no one tell them that Batman takes people in alive? It's been mentioned. I don't think they care. Do they not care because they're vicious, or do they not care because this is a simulation and they know it? That's the million-dollar question. Serike Dutch's Gorsinar, Sermody Medianara Nadana, Nezra Surning Madi, Exerman, and Nadani Number Nadona, in another certain in Namar Nani Nasen, in a seminar and Nadawani Nani Nani, Adon Kinomate. It's an unruly T40 Kino Concernican, Chiti Kitty Noa, Sanan and Renewi Hiekale Kundina, Dedica Critica Nekin Watson, Ectise Yarakin or See or Willie Man, Exedium whatever, and in an Albertan, you cannot get an American. Inks, idiot criminals and killers. The city is safer for our actions, Velocity answers. That's a fairly scary response. How do you know some of those men weren't press-ganged in? Harold asks. What, you're giving them hell for killing? One of his wives asks. It sounds like the Canador Agatha Snarlmane. Not exactly. I'm pointing out that in this scenario, non-lethal is preferred because the concept is they don't have the full support of the law. If they were working on a higher level, then the proper consequence of this would kick off as police unites who have better organization and equipment would become hostile. Better equipment how? Improved communications, aerial vehicles with heavy weapons, better ground vehicles, a well-organized readout of the city, and they wear armor. Not to mention all of them have some form of ranged weapon on them at all times. If they want to flush you out, they can make it very hard. Activate it, Velocity says. Pardon me, Harold asks. Bring this up to level 4. It's clear our stealth makes this too much of an easy thing to do. Bring it to level 4. Level 4 means that you get thinking opposition. You 2 would be going up against me after a time. I'll be in character, but it's still me. Does your character casually see us? No, but he's smart enough to track you and figure out you're invisible. Then he'll expose you, and the moment he suspects the general area you're in, he will use lethal force. Or in this case, rubber bullets that will cause you to lose the simulation. Unless you put on armor in the simulation, and even then, it will only last so long until I upgrade to armor-piercing rounds. Harold explains. Rain? Do you have any objections to that? Velocity asks. None whatsoever. We've been running scared of him for so long. I want to see how good he is. Rain says. All right then. You 2 get a 30-minute countdown before I'm activated. The police will be here in 5. And you still need to take out Zas to win. But the winning condition is expanded. You need to survive to escape Gotham. Harold explains. I think we've got it. Fair enough. Inputting harder difficulty. Now, Harold says, and the sky darkens, and there's a thrum in the air. Really? This is an entertainment setting. Of course it's dramatic as all hell, Harold regards. All right, they've got a half hour, Mr. Hood. Time to see how much fun we can have. See how crazy this doctor can get. The Canador dressed as Harley Quinn says in her highest-pitched tone, which still comes out husky and deep. Do you think that they're going to call them Batman or anything of the sort? Observer Wu asks. There's been a lot of work put into this sim, so I'm not sure. Apparently this program is in case something goes wrong with the actual city and they can't do their little stunts outside, one of the men says. It's more than that. The program also works outside with holo projectors, but in those environments they need actors to fill in a lot of roles. They also use mannequins for dead bodies and basic robots for bit parts, one of the men says. Been studying it? Observe Wu asks. Yes, it's weird stuff. There's talk of some proprietary technology from theme parks, including one called Defenestration Nation. Apparently, it's some kind of inertial dampener that prevents harm on impact to hard surfaces. Defenestration Nation? Some kind of theme park all about harmlessly throwing people out of buildings, through walls and madness like that. All somehow safe and regular. Apparently, original flavor Jameson likes to go there with his wives a lot, one of the men says before his communicator starts to ring. Lieutenant Sykes reporting. Original flavor? Does that make me barbecue? Harold asks on the other end. Is this room bugged? If you paid more attention to intelligence, you would know that every room is bugged, Harold replies. Oh, leave them alone. It's U.S. time. Agatha purrs at him, and the call is disconnected. I really hope he wasn't including the bathrooms in that, Sykes says as he tucks his communicator back in. There's a sudden text sent. Motion and thermal sensors only. Jesus Christ, this man. On the upside, you now know just how thoroughly he's proofed this ship against infiltration. Observer Wu notes. Yes, sir. Good God. The man answers offhandedly. This is the GCPD. We've tracked your heat signal. We know you're there. Come up with your hands up or we will begin shooting. A stern man with flecks of coppery hair in his otherwise white mustache and full head calls down from the chopper. I don't think they're going to listen, Gordon. Whoever they are, they're worse than any bat we've had to deal with. A massive man says as he hefts a machine gun with an underslung grenade launcher. We still have to do this by the book, Detective Bullock. Otherwise, we can't hold them legally, Gordon answers. Pity that. We'd save a lot of lives if we could just blow these crazies away. Bullock answers as he pulls out a toothpick he starts to chew on. Think I saw something. Show me. Gordon answers, and Bullock fires a grenade from the launcher on his rifle. It clatters to the ground and begins emitting smoke that highlights something moving within it. Gordon brings up his megaphone. Surrender or we will use deadly force. And don't even think of pulling a piece. We got more guns than mine trained on you. Bullock shouts loudly, and there is sudden movement in the mist. Bullock opens fire, and from a dozen different angles, the smoke is perforated by a hail of weapon fire. They're moving. Night vision on. Who knows what kind of damage they'll cause if they run wild, Gordon orders before turning to his radio. Everyone, I want you to use your fire sparingly. We have no way of knowing who might catch our bullets if not our target. Remember your training. Use flash grenades to flush them out and smoke to highlight them. Go, go, go! Kamish, what do we do if we can't pin these loonies? Detective Bullock asks. We call in the bigger backup. The bat? Depends what the governor says. If we're told to kill, you think he'll do that? After letting freaks like the clown and scarecrow run around? Bullock asks. There's no way of knowing, but since Batman hasn't already shown up, I have to assume he won't. Meaning we'll have to rely on something else to deal with these murderous metas. Dark day when we gotta rely on the bat to do our jobs. Bullock grumps. Why is the simulation still showing Gordon and Bullock to us? Someone asks. Because they both must be close to the chopper in question. Close enough that hearing the conversation is important, Sykes replies. The pilot waves Commissioner Gordon closer and bids him to lean down. We have extra weight, sir. They're here, with us. You sure? Gordon whispers back. It's taking a lot more to keep us in the sky. Far more than you, me, and Bullock. I'm sure. I can keep it steady and calm, but if we can get to someplace else, we can pin them, Gordon says. Stick to flight code only. We use the wreck, yes, sir. Something wrong, Kamish? Bullock asks. Jim puts a finger to his lips as the chopper slowly starts moving away from the buildings and towards the harbor. Then after a few blocks, the helicopter suddenly lurches upwards for a second. We just lost them. They've dropped off. Smoke them out, Gordon answers, and Bullock leans over the side to throw down several smoke grenades. Gordon is on his radio and police cars start filling the streets below as more choppers join them in the sky. The lights of the blimps start to focus on that part of the city as Gotham starts to home in on the two invisible women. Then a chain is hurtled out of nowhere and into the blades of the chopper. A blade is broken in half and another is badly damaged as the machine begins to fall from the sky. The landing is controlled and away from civilians, but there's no soft way to land a damaged helicopter. Gordon groans as Bullock lets go of him, having sheltered the smaller man with his own body. Having a hard time breathing, Kamish? Just keep breathing. They want to play rough? I got someone for that, Gordon says, and Bullock nods as he leans his head back and keeps his airway clear. Gordon pulls out a small reinforced black phone and holds down a single button. If any of you are receiving this, we need you yesterday. We have two crazed metas with invisibility powers carving through Gotham. They're willing to attack police and criminal alike. I don't care who's available. I need you to hit them hard. I'm here, a voice says from the other side. Whichever one you are, we need you now, Gordon answers. Understood. Red Hood out. Shit, Gordon says, holding the communication device away. Did I hear that right? Red Hood? Bullock asks. You did. Good. Bastards deserve him. Bullock grunts in pain. Try not to move, Bullock. You might pierce a lung, Jim tells him. What about the pilot? Don't look, it's not pretty, Jim replies. Damn bastards, I like the guy. Bullock grunts out. Hey, dual screen. We've got visual on Red Hood too, Sykes says in appreciation as it shows the vigilante rising up in full view of the orange-tinted sky. He turns his head to regard where the blimps are turning their spotlights and begins to race along the rooftops. I still don't see anything on the other video. What's going on? Why aren't they heading out of the city? They want a fight. They're giving up their chances at winning to try and ambush Harold, or rather Red Hood. Since Harold could find them with ease, he's going to pretend not to see them as Hood until he can flush them out in character, Sykes concludes. So in other words, pay attention. We're about to see how both sides react in this sort of situation. Observer Wu notes, Red Hood is now on a motorcycle and moving fast. OOCS, Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 210, Elsewhere, with Others. Cameras lost them. The simulation is pulling in a lot more cycles by trying to get the entire city down and simulate relevant information. Who designed this program? It's accounting for everything? I'm not certain, but the camera for our girls is... Oh, Observer Wu begins to ask as the camera for the girls suddenly splits and is now 2 screens for a total of 3. One of them is heading for the Gotham City limits. The other is causing numerous explosives to vanish and then reappear near Arkham Asylum. Are they going for bonus points or something? They're doing something is for sure, but if they're attacking Arkham, would Red Hood stop it? We know Harold would, but how deep does he get into character? Because if it's all the way, then he'll likely want to pull the trigger on the bombs surrounding supervillains. Then take her in for mass murder and property damage. Red Hood's kind of like that. Sounds psychotic, Observer Wu notes. Red Hood is a former hero that's more villain to the villains at this point. Civilians are safe around him, but he's full lethal on non-super criminals and is outright trying to kill the bigger ones. Huh. So what is the appeal to a criminal who hates other criminals more? He's still a murderer, correct? Observer Wu asks. Slightly more complicated than that, sir. Time's up. Hood's found one of them. A reinforced boot catches an invisible target, and a small device appears in midair as the hand holding it reflexively lets go. There is a cry as velocity hits the terrain, and Red Hood towers over her as he checks the device. So, wiring this nut house to pop? Not bad. Not bad. What about the doctors, orderlies, and other staff? What? Velocity says as she slinks to the side, then pausing. She looks down. The gravelly area is audibly crunching beneath her, and she's disturbing the stones. That's how he's tracking her. He saw the pattern. You... His arm lashes out like a bullet, and a spray of pellets are hurled in her direction. She dives away but feels a trinity of them impact her. There is only a little pain, though, so it can't be... The fluorescent pain is fading with you. meaning that whatever you wear is invisible too. So we're not dealing with a streaking murderer at any rate. Red Hood notes before looking out over the city. And then there's the other one, no doubt making her escape. He turns back to her. I'll be back for you shortly, oh, and don't think you'll start the fireworks without me. You want this zit of a building to pop? You need these. He says, holding the left half of his jacket open and showing the primers for her explosives are all taped to the inside of it. You want them? Come get them. No point. The bomb was just to get your attention, Mr. Hood. Velocity says, and there's a pause. Oh, you are cute. Very cute, Red Hood says. I'm going after your little friend now. You have a whole city to search and can't rely on your eyes. Don't have to. There's only one way out she can take that isn't going to be drowning in furious cops. I've got all the time I need, he says before turning around and starting to leave. Velocity moves, invisible but audible, and Red Hood ducks away and slams a smoke bomb down. The thick cloud highlights Velocity's position, and she finds herself dodging vicious swings from the man's reinforced gauntlets that have crackling electricity surrounding the knuckles. She steps a half-pace too far away, and her stance locks for a moment. Then the rubber bullet catches her in the stomach. That's the first blow. I'm working with the assumption you have armor on, but it's no compromised. If you let me get another shot there. She twists away from the second shot he was talking about, and the rubber bullet crashes into the gravel. Then you're considered downed. Understood? He doesn't even falter in his explanation of the rule. I understand, Velocity says before pulling the trigger on the weapon she had stolen without him seemingly noticing. Red Hood contorts away from the gunfire as the pistol jumps wildly in Velocity's hand. Bit more kick than expected if you're not used to them, Velocity growls. Here's a hint. They're normally visible, so you can use something called a sight. Red Hood taunts her as he brings out a second pistol and starts raining bullets at her. She outright teleports to get some distance and starts trying to control her breathing. Just so you know, if I wasn't in character, I'd be on you still, Red Hood says as he examines the area she vanished in and takes note of the pattern in the gravel. And the character has found you again. Velocity bites down on a curse as she dodges bullets and then finds a spread of something hurled at her. She teleports away and is glad she does so as the small orbs outright explode this time rather than paint everything an obnoxious green. GCPD, this is Hood. I've tracked one to Arkham and dismantled a bomb. The other is making a break for the city limits. Be warned, this one can teleport. Short range so far. But they're way more mobile than expected. Follow up wide-range attacks with saturation when you can. Give them nowhere to teleport to, he says, holding on to a pressure-sensitive part of his helmet. You're a bastard. Aren't we all? He asks in dark amusement. So quick question, was rigging this place to blow like the world's ugliest pimple the goal all along? Or are you just that desperate for attention? Wouldn't you like to know? Velocity begins to say, before suddenly the entire simulation powers down and they're all in a reflective room. All hands, this is the captain speaking. We have an unknown vessel quickly entering range. Negative IFF and refusing to answer hails. Everyone to your stations in case of combat. I repeat, everyone to stations, potential combat. Ah, fuck. Girls, stick with me so we can advise or retaliate as needed. Harold orders before rushing for the exit out of the hollow chamber. Captain Rangi, do we know the make and model of the ship in question? Agatha asks as the group rushes onto the bridge. The serious man turns to face her, his tribal tattoos being the only thing to give his face expression in the serious moment. We will have visuals on the ship in short order. We do know that the vessel is half the length of the Indomitable and possesses a large fin structure on the top and bottom. Tarthak Ship Incorporated, the company is well known for using large angular fins that can be a weak point in a ship-to-ship battle, but allow for extreme maneuverability at high speeds. Agatha says immediately. It must be a retrofit. Tarthak rarely builds anything bigger than a medium cargo hauler. Guria adds, if the main superstructure is half the length of this monster, then it would be a frigate, cruiser, or a small colony ship. Does it have any heat bleed off? Normally, the biggest sources of heat are at the radiators, but if they're more sporadic, then the ship might have taken damage. It would explain why it's not answering any hails and the lack of IFF. Dumaya asks, and Harold turns to her. Studying all weapons includes the ships that carry them. Before I'm finished, I want to handcraft a warship worthy of the gods. There is a brief moment as Harold grabs the Saramali and kisses her. She blinks and smiles. Captain Rangi clears his throat pointedly. Sir, we will have the ship in visual range within 10 seconds. One of the bridge crew calls out. Bring it on screen when it happens. Captain Rangi orders, and there is a silence on the bridge. In range, on screen now. The main screen lights up with a massive ship that has severe battle damage on it. The lower fin has a massive gouge in the middle of it, and there's a clear, bright green and gold paint job that shows signs of clear plasma burns along it. The fin damage was sabotage. That kind of damage comes from internal explosions. But there's no corresponding outer damage to potentially provoke an explosion of that magnitude, Giria says. Its main, backup, and emergency communication arrays are shredded. Whoever hit that ship wanted it alone, and... Sir, 3 more ships have entered detection range. IFF Flayer, Biter, and Beater. Pirate codes, Giria says softly. Captain, we're being hailed. Put it on, Captain Rangi orders. This is the 3rd mate of the Solar Wind. We have been attacked by pirates and are requesting any and all aid. Captain, 1st and 2nd mate are dead. Men and children are aboard. Our communications have been destroyed. Indomitable. Do you read me? We read you. Our vessel is underarmed and underarmored for its size. We can't simply beat all 3 back. Not 3 on 1. Velocity, rain. How fast is that stealth shuttle? Harold asks. You mean to take one of them? I do. Get me within 100 kilometers and I can get on one of those ships. Then I can literally tear it apart from the inside out. How do our odds look then? Harold asks, and Captain Rangi looks at him. Considerably better, Captain Rangi says before turning away, needing a moment to think. Observer Wu, I am at an impasse. You and your mission is my highest priority. Oh, goddess, there's debate. Why is there debate? Your vessel is so large, we need help. Please. Solar Wind? Do you not read us? Captain Rangi asks out loud. Are you there, Indomitable? Will you help us? The 3rd mate begs. We're not receiving anything. Their systems are short, sir. They can send but not receive. Observer Wu? Captain Rangi asks. We set out to see what living humans are doing, not watch aliens die. If you can give us good odds on void combat, I will allow it. 3 to 1 is a bit much. But if Harold's offer is genuine, it is. Then our shields will be strong enough to hold them back, provided we can surprise them. Velocity? Rain. Are you 2 willing to help? Harold asks, and Rain turns to Velocity, who looks stunned. Velocity says as the attention turns to her. Then she looks back to Harold and considers. All right, I would like to see what you can do, human. I accept. Rain, you are to remain on this vessel with a communication device in case things go wrong. Report everything that happens as it happens. High Command wants information. They will have information. She turns to Captain Rangi. Captain Rangi, if I am killed in this operation and my ship destroyed, will my subordinate be welcome on this vessel? She will be my personal guest and we will deviate course to any planet or station she cares to name if the worst happens. Captain Rangi assures her. Good. Subject mirror, Harold. With me then. We're getting you on a pirate ship. Rip and tear until it is done, Harold says as he suddenly has his sword held sheathed in his left hand. Let's see if I can cut an entire ship in half. All hands, pirate ships incoming. We are moving to assist a civilian vessel against its attackers. Indomitable, please, can you hear me? The Solar Wind's 3rd mate pleads again. My communicator is badly damaged, and our communication arrays are shattered. We're making our way towards you. We will not survive alone. Please. That is outright begging for aid. All personnel to battle stations. Sir? One of the bridge crew asks. Yes, Mr. Carlson? To play devil's advocate, is this not a bad idea? Is our mission not more important than some random aliens, no matter how sympathetic their pleas? Carlson asks. Less than you think. Even if we leave the Solar Wind to the pirates, there's a more than even chance they'll pounce on us next. especially if they cross-reference our ship and figure out our likely crew manifest. Men sell well in this galaxy. So number we hit them now when they're distracted and take control of the fight. If we happen to save the solar wind as we do so, then that's wonderful. But the main idea is to drive off those ships. Locals. I want your opinion on those pirate ships. Which one is most dangerous and what are their arms and armaments? All right. Well, first I need to see exactly what the general shape of these things are. They're not in visual range yet. Guice says, slithering over the bridge into the scanners. These are Jules-class interceptors, a very popular ship for being easy to maintain and tougher than average. The Claw, the first ship that actually took a human and then was subverted, was a Jules-class interceptor. Observer Wu notes, "Sir, I request you get to your quarters and put it into lockdown until further notice. You are not authorized to enter combat," Captain Rengi says, and Observer Wu nods. "Very well, I look forward to watching the security video."